talk about what you want to talk about, and if there's
Not
certain
gonna
things.
poke the big black bear.
No. And I just realised I've got my Mandalorian hoodie on, and I look as close to a big black bear, I think, as I ever have done.
I love it.
You
It looks
know,
very fluffy and
it is.
snuggly.
It's lovely and fluffy and
That's
snuggly. It
exactly what
is.
you want on a dreary November morning.
It absolutely is. I've got my like pajama bottoms on. I've got my slippers on, and I've
Yeah.
got my Mandalorian hoodie. So I'm all sort of
Ultimate
set.
comfort.
Ultimate. But I just realised just how much I look like a black bear. That's what I look like.
That's now got to be your uniform, right?
I
You need
feel
to
like
start merch.
if I need to get some ears for this bit, and then
Yeah.
I'm being the thing that I hate, is the black bear.
Yeah, but then you're tackling it head on and you're taking control. There we go.
Maybe I am. Hi, friends. I feel like this is a bit of a Joe Rogan start. We've just started talking, and I think I might just keep all that in. I feel like that's a great way to start the pod. So I'm here with somebody that, right, I've been podcasting for 10 years, right, and as much as me and Neil, who I've done all of our podcasts with, we've had so much fun and so much laughs. The one thing I take away, that if I had to stop podcasting today, the one thing I would take away is the fact of the fantastic, amazing, friendly, lovely people that we've met in those 10 years. And one of those people is my guest today. It's Sophia Franklin. Hello, Sophia.
Oh, that's so nice.
Well, Neil will say the same thing. Is that podcasting, while not financially rewarding, unfortunately, for everything else, for meeting people and making friends and finding people that you would never have come across in your normal working life.
Yeah.
It's been the gift that just keeps on giving, and it's people that, like, I think you've been on 2 or 3 of our podcasts that we've done.
Can't get rid of me.
Do you know what I mean? And it's like, it's the same. And I love the fact that people, if I ask, will always come back on. Doesn't matter what kind of crap we're trying to do, they'll always come back and come and chat. So I thank you so much for coming and joining me for this one, because it's not. I hope it's a little bit of fun, but it's a little bit more introspective and looking at ourselves. And we were chatting. I wish I'd recorded a little bit earlier, because we were talking quite like some really good bits about all sorts. But anyway,
we'll get into it.
We'll get into it. But first of all, how are you? Because I know that you've had a bit of a cold lately.
Yeah. So apart from the winter cold that just seemed to attack me earlier than I had planned, I'm actually okay. We obviously, the whole thing of this is to talk about depression and mental health, and I have had a really tough, I'd say, 18 months, but the last month I've been doing a lot better, and there's lots of reasons for that, and I'm sure we'll go into them. But right now I'm doing really well. My partner Joe and I have recently moved into our renovation project, so I'm sat on the floor and there are boxes around me, and upstairs is a shell of a house.
Right.
But since moving here, I feel quite settled. I feel like there's things to do, there's ways to keep me busy, and I've had a really chaotic couple of years, moving down to London from Gloucestershire, where we met, and kind of changing jobs and trying different things, and then meeting someone who was amazing, but also before that having some really terrible relationships, all of the above. Now I feel quite settled. So you are coming to me on a very good weekend, and I feel very zen, I would say, which is not normal.
But that's good, isn't it? I mean,
Yeah.
I'll say for myself, is I went out singing for the first time in 3 weeks last night. Which was great, because I'd had to cancel a couple of gigs because of what I was going through, but also like having kidney stones, this whole thing all melded into one, and it kind of makes you. I woke up this morning and I felt a little bit more on a level playing field, which is the first time in about a month that I've felt like that. Now, that what strikes me, which makes me feel a bit of a fraud of it all, is the fact that I've sort of spent a month of really feeling shit.
Yeah.
You said you've had the last 18 months or so.
Yeah, it's been a really tough time. So to give people a bit of a backstory, I was in broadcasting for 6 years with the BBC. My nose is running, that's a good thing.
Okay. I
Good
thought
time for
you
that to
mentioned the
happen.
BBC. I thought, oh God, she's going to start crying about the BBC. Oh, no.
Well, there's still time.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
No. So yeah, I worked at the BBC for 6 years as a broadcaster and reporter and journalist. And then during COVID, kind of all my presenting dreams had been taken away from me because everyone was having to do things that we didn't really want to do, but because it was needs must, and we were key workers, and I went back to newsreading. So I struggled during the pandemic. I won't lie. I lived on my own and I was a key worker. So I had very little contact and I couldn't go and stay with my parents like a lot of my friends did.
Yeah.
So instead, I just carried on working, and it was tough. But what I had decided in that was that I needed a change. And naturally, during a pandemic, I thought, let's move to London. So I packed up my life. I had been single at that point for about 2 years, and that relationship previously, at the end of that, had sparked some depressive episodes. But I was like, right, I now need to start living my dreams, and that's to move to London. So I packed up my flat that I'd not been in barely a year. My parents were like, what are you doing? And I said, please, Mum and Dad, just trust me. I've got a good feeling about this. And thankfully it worked out. So I moved to London, and stayed with some friends to begin with, but I went on the promise of 4 broadcasting shifts, 4 newsreading shifts at TalkSport. That was it. 4 shifts, and trying to afford London life. But I suddenly just started getting lots of work. I was really lucky that I was a co-host with Chris Evans on Mondays on Virgin Radio. I was doing co-hosting with Stephen Mulhern and Rick Wilson and Gabby Roslin, and I was doing all this amazing stuff, newsreading for these amazing presenters on Virgin Radio, whilst also doing TalkSport Radio, doing podcasting, you name it, I was doing it. But I was working kind of 16-hour days at least, and there was no let up. And I think during that time, I wasn't financially savvy. I was trying to date. I was meeting new people. I moved into a house share, which didn't have any of the luxuries I was used to of my own home, and then kind of started hanging out with my amazing group of friends in London, but they were very different to what I've been used to. Going out a lot, when lockdown lifted, it was like party, and I was 27, I think, when all of this was going on, and it was just a lot. And I don't think I quite realised the intensity of it all until I started to slow down a bit, and I moved in to my own flat in London, and financially that was a big pressure. And that is when all the problems started. So that was the start of last year. So it was February 2022. And I was living in this beautiful flat in South London, but it was an awful lot of money. And whilst that was fine, the landlord was horrific. And I'm still in a legal battle now.
Really?
So, yeah, it was just, there's so many things to talk about. And I got to be careful what I say too much. But just, I would come home one day and my landlord would be sat on my sofa, or the doors would all be open and there'd be workmen in there that I hadn't agreed to. And it was all very odd. And it's the highs of renting that I'm sure many people will be familiar with. And that's when it started. So I was starting to struggle again after, having this really intense, extreme highs and lows of London lifestyle, chaotic, busy. And I'm a country girl, and it was, like I said, a lot. And then I started to dip. And my mum noticed it first. She's always the one that noticed it. She said, I can hear it in your voice. You're quite irritable. You're snappy with me. And I'm fine. Truth was, I wasn't fine. But thankfully, I then met my boyfriend, Joe. And I think without him, I honestly, if anything's going to make me cry, it's talking about him. Because I'd been with some terrible men and had awful dating experiences and tried to make relationships work that weren't going to work, and getting involved with awful people and all of the above. But then Joe was a bassist of a country band I knew, and as you know, Pav, I'm a big country music fan.
Absolutely,
and
you are, yeah.
I was kind of aware of him anyway, and as it turns out, he was aware of me, and we kind of fancied each other, so that was a good start. And then we started dating, and then started going out officially from the May, but all of this stuff started to kick off really from the July. And and he was incredible. And then I think I've never been so vulnerable and shown myself to someone so quickly than I did with him. Um, and he saw me having huge panic attacks regularly, really bad dips. I have really bad body dysmorphia issues, and was gaining weight because I was in a relationship, and that's what happens when you're in a new relationship, because you eat and you're in love and it's all of that nice stuff.
Can't you tell? I've been married nearly 30 years. Look at me.
That's how I know it's a happy relationship. And that's but that was part and parcel of it. Everyone was like, oh, it's, I can't remember, someone described it beautifully for me, but it's like love calories. And I was like, yeah, and it was great. But also with that was a really dark feeling of, I'm gaining weight, I don't like my body, and will this person that's with me also like me? And so I was very vulnerable. I was convinced he was going to leave, and of course he didn't. And then in the September of last year, we managed to get me out of that flat, and I moved in. But since then, it's been really tough, because I was also in a job where I'd moved out of broadcasting into PR, and I hated it. It was the worst decision I've ever made, because I went after money and not happiness, which is another thing that people should really not do if you struggle with depression. And yeah, it's just been really tough. But in the last 2 months, as I said, he's really helped me rebuild this last year, especially, and has been an absolute rock in all of it. And now I'm back on antidepressants, which I don't think I can ever come off. I've been back on them for about a year. And sometimes I forget to take them. And I'm sure if Joe's listening in the background, he'll be like, yeah, she's terrible. We have to have a big alarm that goes off at 9 o'clock every night going, Sophia, take your pills.
Yeah.
But, I've started a new job. I now work in podcasting professionally.
Wow.
I know.
You mean you're making money from podcasts? Is that even possible?
I mean, I wouldn't say I'm making money. I'd say I'm financially okay.
Okay.
I mean,
that's a massive bonus in the podcasting world.
Well, yeah.
That's amazing.
But work in branded podcasting for companies, so it's a little bit different. But now, because I've been on my tablets for a little while, and I'm only on a small dosage of 10 milligrams, moving here, our relationship being really healthy and open and vulnerable and amazing, and having this job that genuinely feels like I've got a creative outlet again, I feel okay. I feel like, touch wood, I'm at a good place. So it's been tough, Pav. It's been real tough.
The thing is, I mean, there's lots to, not that I'm a psychotherapist, but there's a lot to unpack in what you said. Lots to unpack. So the first thing is, like, I noticed, because one thing that made me think about contacting you to be on the pod is that I think you put it on Instagram about the antidepressants.
Yeah.
Now, the one thing I've had that offered to me a couple of times, but I feel I always want to steer away from that, because I feel I've got a compulsive behavior. I'm food is my thing that I just like.
Yeah.
What's the word I'm looking for? I don't want to get hooked on medication, and I don't know whether it would work for me or whether it wouldn't. So what does antidepressants do for you? What explain to me.
So I can kind of take you back a little bit to when I started them for the first time, because I was like you. I was like, I don't want to go on a pill. I don't like the thought of that. There was a taboo around it. And at the time I went on them was in 2019. So, that's quite a long time ago, when people didn't really talk about mental health as much as we are now.
No, exactly.
And I'd been in a 6-year relationship with somebody who, I'd met when I was quite young, when I was 18, and we had a house together, and it was a good relationship, but it wasn't what I wanted. And I made the very hard decision to walk away. But as a result of that, I then, again, there's a pattern here, I threw myself into work, and that has always been my coping mechanism, is to overwork. So I think for the last year, when I couldn't work because I didn't like my job, that was a real, tough period for me, and a shock. But at this point, that's when I started presenting. My career started taking off. But I get home and I wouldn't want to eat, because I've never been very good at cooking. So I would just have a bit of toast. I'd always open a bottle of wine, and I just kind of existed at home. But at work, I was like this vibrant, energetic person, and you wouldn't have been able to tell the difference.
No.
But it was my mum, and it's always my mum, who was like, you're not right. And, you know, I think at that point we were a couple of months broken up, my ex and I, and she said, you know, you made this decision, and I'm not expecting you to be happy-go-Larry, but I do think that you are not coping as well as I thought you would. And I think we need to talk about it. And I think you need to go get help. So I went to the GP and I had a total breakdown to this amazing nurse who I have never seen again. She probably was an angel that was sent to sweep me off my feet and help. But she was honestly fantastic. And she explained to me that you have only so many chemicals in your brain. You have a cup of chemicals and they help you to be happy and keep going. And she said, the problem is you're pouring from that cup into your work cup. So you're pouring the whole thing in, and that means that you can keep going when you're working and you're presenting and you're doing all of this showman stuff, as you know very well. You know, you're putting your full personality and energy out there. And she said, when you get home, there's nothing left in the cup to pull from. And then the next day, that cup is a little bit emptier because you're constantly trying to pour from an empty cup, and there's nothing left. And so the cup starts to cave in. And I was like, oh my God, that's exactly it. And I've never heard that before. And she said, well, there's an answer, and it's a small pill. And the reason that I prescribe this to you is because it helps you replenish that cup faster. She said, the problem is you will be a little bit more on an even keel. So you won't get those highs, but you're also not going to get those lows, but you'll be able to kind of settle at a point where you still feel emotion because you're not on a massive dosage, but it will help you cope. And I was really skeptical, and I can't explain what it does, but it's just like someone unlocks my brain and almost puts a little cotton wool ball around it and says, it's okay, you've got some breathing room now, you know, you're safe, and you can deal with things more. So when things start to happen, as they do in life, whether it's grief, illness, breakups, you know, promotions, whatever, you're able to deal with it more rationally. And I've come off the pills, and I've gone on them again, and I've come off them, and you know, I'm the worst pill taker in the world, which is why we have to have such an aggressive alarm at 9 o'clock that scares the shit out of me every time. But without that, I notice a massive difference, and everyone around me does too. You know, I'm very lucky that my family's very close with me. My brother, especially, is like, are you all right? And you know, how's your mental health doing? But it's my mum and Joe, my partner, who will say, are you taking your pills? And it's like they know. And I heard it was a Keris saying that on your first episode, and the people around her saying, you're taking your pills? And it is the weirdest sentence to hear, but it's like, I know I'm not, and I'm afraid of people asking me that question. And it's almost like everyone knows, but it's only two people that will actually turn around and say, are you taking your pills? And my mum, I will always say, yeah. She'll go, I don't believe you.
Yeah.
And then she'll say, Joe, is she taking her pills?
It's weird, isn't it? Because when you said about it's a taboo, there is a taboo thing about saying that if you're, in quotes, on medication.
Yeah.
Because the first thing you think of is padded cells, straight jackets. You think, oh my God, being on medication is one step away from One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest.
Yeah.
It's and that is something that it's not, is it? It's not that at all.
No.
It's something that is going to help you. And I don't know whether that's in my mind is the fact that it's almost like you're admitting defeat if you go for something like medication.
And I totally get it. And my mum said to me, and my mum's, you know, my dad will say that my mum thinks the doctor's the answer for everything. And I think that probably shows my dad's ignorance slightly and his older way of doing things. And he'll admit that. But my mum did say to me, you know, if you had cancer, you would take the drug you needed to take.
Exactly, yeah.
So this is a long form of illness. And sometimes you need to accept that this is the pill you have to take long term. And I think ever since then, whenever I feel weird about it or I feel slightly embarrassed, and I felt less so since talking about it more, and hence the Instagram post when I thought many people will be shocked to hear I'm on this because of the kind of personality I am. Um, ever since then, I've thought, what does it matter? Because I'm not opening a bottle of wine every night. I'm not, starving myself as I did do in the first early part of feeling really, really desperate and probably at the point of suicide. I was really not well. And now I think if one pill can save my life every day, then I'm going to take it and I'm not going to worry about it. And I think not every pill is right for everyone. There are so many variations out there, and there are side effects. And, I think weight gain or sickness, I feel sick when I take my pills for the first time to begin with, but it passes and soon it just helps you feel yourself again. And I think it's just a case of seeing what works for you. For some people, it's exercise. Now, I am not that person. And no matter how much I tell myself that the gym will help, and Joe will always say, it helps. I say, yeah, no, I know it helps, but that voice is not loud enough to go, oh, don't go to the gym. So exercise is not my coping mechanism. Music helps me, but only so much. Work is very much my vice and very much my crutch, but again, I'm mindful of the fact that pours from a cup and I've only got so much to give. And I think a combination of therapy over the years and talking, but also me talking as I am now to you, to friends, to family. I'm much more of an open book about it. Combine that with taking a small pill every day, and I think without that I might not be here. And I genuinely think that for me is the ingredients I need for long-term happiness and health.
Yeah. How good are you at taking advice? Because it's been a running thing of the episodes that we've done is that I've always said I'm great at giving advice, but if someone was giving me that same advice, I would pretty much tell them to fuck off. So how are you with stuff like that? Because it seems to me that like if it comes from Joe or your mum, you'll stop and go, yeah, hang on a minute. But if it's anybody else, you sort of go, yeah.
My mum will disagree with you.
Oh, really? Okay.
She'll go, she doesn't listen to me. And it's taken a while because I think
but it does make you stop, doesn't it? It does make you stop if Joe or your mum sort of says, hang on a minute.
If it comes from a person who's taken the time to go, hold on, yeah, like you say, hold on a minute, let's take a breath here and talk properly. And I think it can't be made flippantly. It's almost, borderline intervention. It's sitting down and going, I've noticed this. Are you okay? Or I've noticed that, are you taking your pills? And my mum will often, because we don't live close anymore, we're 3 hours away, and that's, that's rubbish.
Yeah.
But it's very much a case of she will kind of hear me and my voice and my tone and my whatever I'm doing over the course of a week, and then she'll make her judgment. And I've learned to trust that now. If you'd asked me 5 years ago, I would have told you there's no fucking way I'm listening to my mum, because I think there was some rebellious side of me that was trying to outlive my teenage years that I hadn't really gotten out of my system when I was a teenager. And she will definitely tell you the same. But now I think because I'm able to experience the last 4 years of going up and down since that relationship broke down and now being where I am, it's definitely changed things for me. And I know for a fact that they are the people that I listen to. Now, if my dad said it, I'd be even more worried, and I would absolutely do what my dad said within a second, because my dad doesn't say things often. So it's like little nuggets of wisdom that you have to cherish. But I am much better at giving advice, for sure.
I think anybody that has gone through depression or anything are amazing at giving advice, and always like, I'm here if you want to talk. I'm here, and yet I've had it so many times where just over the last few weeks, people have known that there's something wrong, and they'll message me, always here, ready to talk, mate. If you know, and I'll go, yeah, okay, and then move on to the next message, because I know that I wouldn't. And it's lovely that that there are people there that will be there, but it's just the difference between taking that advice and giving that advice is massive.
And I also think that it's a case of, sometimes I think it's a deflection thing,
Mm.
that we're almost not ready to talk, but we're so good at dealing with these things so we can give the advice. But that means we're not necessarily having to face our own problems. And I think there's something to be said about that there almost needs to be a self-awareness of, am I taking advice because I want it, or am I actually giving advice because I don't want the advice in the first place? And I also think that, there is a lot to be said about being the crutch for people. And for the first time in the last 18 months, I have pulled back from friendships and I've prioritized myself, which I've never done before. And, a couple of friendships I'm now rebuilding, but there's been situations where I've just not spoken to people that were at one point my best friends, because I just can't cope with what they've got going on. And it's not
Right.
fair to them and it's not fair to me. And that's been really hard and people haven't taken it well. But now I've explained it from the other side, as it were, they now get it. But, that was a really hard thing to do. And I've never done that before and never said, I'm really sorry, but I can't be there for you at the moment because I have to be there for myself. And that is wild, but I'm very proud of myself for being able to do that, because that shows growth.
Yeah. But do you feel that's the hardest thing? Because I still find that, as a lot of people say to me, you need to take time out for yourself. When I had to cancel a couple of gigs, and I kept thinking, I'm letting these people down. I've had a couple of weeks off work. I'm letting everybody at work down, and people are saying to me, you just need to worry about yourself.
Yeah.
Don't give a shit about anybody else at the moment. Just concentrate on making sure that you're okay with yourself. And I find that the hardest. I think the hardest and the biggest barrier to get over over all of it.
Yeah, it's huge. And I think because of that I think that's born out of our jobs and our personality. We are probably extroverted people. We are extroverted people, and we do jobs which require us entertaining people, and we thrive off the reaction that we get from people and the interaction, and doing such a flamboyant and over the top thing that involves people coming back to us, and that helps us, that gives us that boost of serotonin and all of the chemicals that we need. So when we're told to take a step back from that, it's like, well, where am I supposed to get that from? But it's a different kind of energy that you get from pressing pause, and it's taken me so long to realize that. And I've suffered with mental health probably from a small child and haven't quite realized it. But I've never been the person to take a pause on myself and be selfish until now. And I'm approaching 30, and my thought was, I cannot go into my 30s trying to please everyone else. I have to start putting myself first, because I can't keep going through the rigmarole of ups and downs every few years, because I don't want to lose people that are important to me, who will be there for me. But there is part of you that goes, well, how long will they be there for me for? So I think there is power in taking a pause, but it's really hard for people like us when all we want to do is please everyone else, because that's what we've done our entire lives, and that's what we do for a living. And we get huge satisfaction and buzz from that. But the aftermath of that is a massive low. So there is also that to deal with. And it's just being honest with ourselves, which takes, I think, a little bit longer.
Well, I've said it before, is that people like us, I think we live our lives on a roller coaster.
Oh, yeah.
And we have amazing highs, but with amazing highs, you've got to have those dips.
Yeah.
And some people love being on the carousel. That's how they love to do their job and live their life. But I think I prefer the roller coaster, because you, with what you get from the highs, whether you're getting that high yourself or whether you're doing something so that other people are enjoying that high, I think it's a trade-off. It doesn't feel like that when you're in the middle of the low, but it's when you've got that high, then you feel that that's why you're here. That's the reason that you are. But the other thing is, I also feel that people like ourselves, we're two people. Like you say, we are the extrovert. I wouldn't class myself as an extrovert. I class myself as I'm a shy, not very confident person.
An introverted extrovert?
Yeah.
Or is it extroverted introvert?
Both of
Probably
them.
the latter. Either way.
But it's having to play that part. But then
Yeah.
when you're alone with yourself, like you say, I think I feel it's also like that scene in Lord of the Rings with Gollum and Smeagol talking to each other,
Yeah.
and you're going, oh yeah, everything's fine. I've got people that love me. Yeah, but then they might not be here forever.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they're here now. Yeah, but what happens if
Oh,
they? And you're always asking yourself these questions.
yeah.
Then from being really happy, you start thinking, oh my God, yeah. And
And
all of a sudden the clouds come in.
I get that at night as well. And I don't know about you, but at night time it's like heightened when I'm in bed, especially when I'm on my own. If Joe's gone out for a night,
Yeah.
God help him.
Yeah.
My brain does something, and he knows, and he's getting better at managing that. And we
Right.
have a bit of a thing in our relationship where he'll say to me, do you need silly Joe or do you need sensible Joe? What Joe do you need? Or do you need practical Joe or do you need comfort Joe? Because he's not used to dealing with the mental health of somebody else, because he's been on his own for a number of years. He's a bit older than me.
All right.
So love to get that in. But yeah, he will kind of, he's now got used to saying, what do you need from me? Which is really helpful. But
that's
when he,
no, that's great.
yeah, and it's made a huge difference for us as a couple. But when he goes out, something happens in my brain, and I know it's not him, but in my head something's going, well, what if he goes out, and what if there's other girls that try to talk to him, and what if he stays out too late, and what if he gets hurt on the way home? And I can't quieten this internal monologue of evil. And it's getting quieter and it's getting better, but I think that comes with being on your own, and like you say, the dark mist coming in, and it's the low points that make the low so much harder, because in the day, if you've had all these big highs and whatever, you feel on cloud nine, but that doesn't last forever.
No.
And sometimes when you're on your own and you're with your thoughts, it's like, God, this is deafening. And it's hard to process those in a really rational manner. And I think, that if that happens for a period of time, if you're out of work for a period of time, if you haven't got a gig for a number of weeks, or if I haven't, sold a podcast to a company, it's like, oh God, what am I doing? And the internal monologue gets a little bit louder, and that's when you struggle. But again, it's just being able to recognize it. And I don't think there's ever going to be a magic cure for anyone.
No.
And I think it's always going to be a roller coaster when you deal with mental health and when you have the jobs that we have. And I think it's just learning to kind of cope with that, and also adapting when the roller coaster goes a little bit left and a little bit right when you weren't expecting it either.
Well, I have the same. I used to have the same thing every night going to bed. I would worry about my kids. I'd worry about my grandkids. But it'd be like, I'd close my eyes to go to bed, and then I could picture horrific things happening.
Yeah.
And so I listen to Carry On films all night now, and I get to sleep perfectly fine.
Oh, that's so good.
I bought every Carry On film on iTunes, so I have them, and I have one of those headbands that's got earphones in.
Yeah.
I play them one every night in order. I press play, and within 10 minutes, if I can hear Sid James going, ha, 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 I'm asleep. I'm just gone.
Oh my God. But I have the same with white noise.
Right.
So every night I'll say, hello, smart speaker, because I'm not going to say it because I'll set the whole bloody house off, because we live in a web.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'll say, hello, smart speaker, play my white noise playlist on Spotify. And every night it's like 5 minutes, I'm out.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I have to almost tell myself to do that. So, if Joe is out and it's kind of 9 o'clock at night, and I'm normally go to bed like 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock at night, if it's 9 o'clock and those voices start creeping in, I'll say, right, you're probably tired, just go to bed, put the white noise on and try and drown it out. And that's starting to work. But it's I'm like you, I don't dread, but I do dread the day I have kids, because I know I'm going to love them so fiercely that the monologue will be even louder. And my mum even says to me, she said, how are you going to deal with that? And I'm like, let's not think about that now. No one needs that fear on their brains right now.
No. But just to let you know, Sophia, like, it never stops.
Yeah.
Even like my youngest is 21, 22, and I worry about all of my adult kids more now than I
Yeah.
ever did when they were little, because at least when they were little I could see where they were
You protect them,
and I
right?
could see what they could do. When they're
Mm.
out doing their own thing,
Yeah.
it is, I mean, it's a good job I've got no hair, because I wouldn't have any hair, because I worry. I mean, that's probably why I've got no hair, because once the kids are grown up, then I've got grandkids to worry about, and it becomes a constant worry. It
Yeah.
just is a
Yeah.
constant worry. So that doesn't help your mental health at all. But
No, and it's like, again, it's that thing you were saying at the start. I'm glad we're talking about it, because you do feel alone and you feel like, am I the only one that's having this internal monologue of worry and fear? And I'll sometimes talk to my friends, my three best friends. I don't think they struggle with mental health in the way that I do, and I think they would agree. Um, and I've said to them before, do you worry about your partners and stuff? And they're like, well, Joe's not going to do anything. I'm like, no, I know that. I know that. My rational brain goes, I know that. But
yeah,
the irrational part of my brain will lead me on a pack of lies and a path that I've never wanted to
yeah,
go down.
the Gollum
And
part of your brain, isn't
yeah,
it? Yeah.
exactly. And they've all said, no, I don't have that. But then my other friend said, well, I just track my boyfriend and then I'm fine. So, well, there's always that. There's always tracking.
You just need to put find a phone on your phone and you're
I'll have
fine.
just GPS on my kids for forevermore when they come on until I'm no longer here.
Yeah, pop one of those Apple AirTags in their
Yeah.
bags, and that'll be
They will
fine.
never know.
No, you'll have like this secret layer with cameras and screens everywhere,
Oh
like
God,
Batman's
that would be
cave.
amazing. And I'll just, like when Homer puts his feet up on the
Yes.
desk, he's got a donut in one hand and like an ice latte in the other. That'll be a dream. I could see myself doing that.
Can you imagine? They come home and you say, "Where have you been?" "Oh, came straight home from school." "No, I noticed that you
Yeah.
went to the shop. You went to your friend's house." There'll be a whole printout.
Yeah, don't pull the wool over my eyes. Do you know what? I'm going to have to say to Joe, we're not converting the garage into an office. We're converting it into a CCTV surveillance room, ready for when we have children.
Yeah. I love it, because one of my grandkids is at the age now where they're going out with their friends, and like when they come over and stay, we say, "Be home by 5 o'clock." So like 5:45 rolls round. Oh, I thought I'd set an alarm on my phone. I said, don't bullshit a bullshitter.
Yeah.
I've heard this with all of your aunts and uncles. Don't say that, because
I've also done it.
Yeah, I know that you're bullshitting me. So don't, any excuse you come up with, I've heard a million times. We know more than you do. She said, how do you? I said, because we do. So don't worry about it. Just don't lie.
And I think that's the thing. When I have kids, they're going to try and tell me everything. I'm like, look, listen, your mum here, I have lived a life.
Exactly. And that's what they do. They always think, stupid parents and grandparents, they don't know nothing.
No, they think that we're just living in a cave.
Yeah. Well, you will be. You'll be in the back cave with all of your screens.
Yes.
Oh dear. So, sort of coming to the end of this, I mean, when you say about the relationships as well, do you feel that is sort of key to have as a solid base, no matter what happens? If things crumble around you at a certain point of time, you've got solid foundations there that is going to stay. Do you know what I mean? It's going to be helpful for you.
Completely, because I've had things happen in my past which I think have triggered this, and I won't go into it because then I will cry.
Okay.
But there are things that have happened where when I was with previous partners, they've just not got it, and it's been quite tough, because that almost makes the pain even harder, and the mental health, even deeper, fall even deeper. And I think you take for granted how much people around you can really help. And I think because I didn't have that for a long time, I didn't understand it. So then when my mum tried to help at periods, I think I pushed her away. And that's how she knew that I wasn't right, because I wouldn't answer my phone as much, or we wouldn't catch up as much, or I wouldn't reply to the last text, and she'd be aware that something was happening. But I think because I didn't have a partner who really understood, and also who I probably wasn't vulnerable enough with, because again, we didn't talk about it as much. Or, you want to present your best self when you're in an early start of a relationship and try and seem the best person ever. It doesn't help. But I think now, because I have the kind of two pillars of my mum and Joe, now I really see the value in that. And I know I'm really lucky because I know a lot of people might not have that other person or might not have their parents. And I don't take that for granted at all, because I think without them, I'd be lost. And then, of course, that comes into the thing of late at night when I worry that I'll lose both of them. And then we go on another roller coaster of anxiety and depression. But I do think that helps. And I think, what my advice would be is, if you don't have that person, then that's where therapy can be invaluable. And I've got a really good friend of mine who I've known for years, and we've lived together, and she's a bit older than me, but we've been friends since we were young. And we deal with a lot of the same issues, from weight to depression to anxiety, but she's on her own, and she also doesn't have family here because of her work taking her to different parts of the world. And she said to me the other week when we finally caught up, she said, I've finally gone to therapy and I can't live without my therapist.
Right.
And she said it's been the biggest change. She said it's once a month I catch up, and she tells me when I'm being an idiot, and she tells me when it's okay, and she talks to me like a friend would talk to me. And it's taken her years to find that therapist that fits her. And I think that for her has been transformational in knowing she's got a safe space to talk to. And I think that everyone needs that. And so if you are listening to this and you think, well, I don't have a partner, or I don't have a parent, or I don't have a friend that I can speak to, there is power in having a therapist, even though they are taking your money. There is power in that, because they can build a bond with you, and they will hear you, and they will learn to tell you the things you need to hear when you need to hear them, even if you don't think you need to hear them, and tell you when you're being an idiot, tell you when you're being irrational, but also tell you when it's okay to be sad, and that you're not alone, and that depression is real. And I think that is the biggest thing that can come for anyone that needs help. And if you don't feel safe enough with family and friends and relationships, then again, that's where therapy can be incredible. And it doesn't always require a pill alongside that, but sometimes, that little bit of medication to see you through a dark patch can help too.
Yeah. Oh, well, there you go. See, I'm sure we've helped so many people today.
I hope so, because that's why I do
have.
it. And when you reached out and said I saw your post on Instagram, I felt really weird posting that, but I wanted to make people aware that even the people that you probably think, would not be taking a pill or dealing with depression, everyone goes through shit, and everyone's dealing with a battle. And it's that cliche of, you never know what someone's going through, but it's true. And I think the more we can talk about it, and as people, we can kind of take down our guards and tell people what we're going through, the better. So I love what you're doing, and I think this podcast is going to help a lot of people.
And that, ladies and gentlemen, is coming from somebody who works in podcasting. I'm just letting you all know she's a podcast expert, because she gets paid for podcasts.
Paid for podcasts.
I've never met anybody like that before. Oh
I know. God. Yeah, it's amazing. I was even shocked when I got offered the job. I was like, is this real?
Yeah, this can't be real. Sophia, no, thank you very much. It's been lovely catching up with you. It really has. And
it's been a pleasure.
I can't wait to have you back on the top 10 of Anything Pod.
What am I going to choose? That's another matter.
Yeah, we'll sort that out in the new year. And we'll also, if you want to come back and we can have another chat on here, it'd be great.
I'm sure when I'm in a low point, that'll be the time to chat to you. I do.
maybe wait until I'm back in the real trough and you are as well, and that'll be like 45 minutes of pure gold, or
we'll just
pure
sob.
Blackness. Yeah, we will. Right, let me just get through this, because I'm still getting used to this. So if you want to email, then it's bigblackbearpod@gmail.com. If you want to catch up with us on Facebook, Instagram, and all of those places, just hit the Linktree link, and it'll take you to everywhere you need to go. And if you need urgent help, then the Samaritans is UK is 116123, and in the USA it's 1-800-273-TALK. That's 273-8255, or the suicide hotline in the US is 988. Also, come and check out the top 10 of Anything Pod. All of it's in the show notes, so just click on the links there. Sophia, once again, thank you so much for joining me. You're wonderful.
You are wonderful.
Thank you very much, everybody. Goodbye, friends.